All right. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Danny, and this is a Common Rule podcast. Yes, I'm still here. I am still alive, still kicking. I just, let's just say I was out of commission for a little while there. I was, Let's see, where was I? I was in the hospital for a while there. Technically, I was in the hospital for 16 days, man. I just went through some shit here, and it was not cool. It was not good. I was in the hospital. St. Joe's, by the way. By the by, shout out to all the awesome staff there at St. Joseph's Hospital here in Phoenix, Arizona. The nurses were amazing. The assistants were awesome. And the social workers were really, really cool to me. Really great people. They helped me through some shit that, we'll get into here in a little bit about what's going on as far as this wonderful, healthcare, or I should say broken healthcare system that we have, that I firsthand have now witnessed as far as how fucking shitty it is. Now, I'm going to ramble on here for a little bit about, what happened. And, it's not that I got a whole lot to catch up on, but this one's going to be a solo podcast. And, there will be some creative value here. The podcast is supposed to be about the creative process and how, we can be better artists and such. I got out of the hospital about 2 weeks ago. I was pondering doing a podcast from the hospital. I was pondering, even as soon as I got out, on doing a podcast, but man, I wasn't in a good state of mind. It was kind of dark. I was essentially, I wouldn't say depressed, because I would, to a certain extent, belittle the people that are actually dealing with real depression, but I was really down. I was more or less kind of feeling sorry for myself. Some things, and I wanted to have a clear head before I started podcasting, and I certainly didn't want to be like a Debbie Downer and, talk about, what I went through and be all sad and shit and be an emotional wreck when I decided to, record and do my podcast. But this week, finally, I got some great news from the Department of Economic Security here in the great state of Arizona, and it was essentially took care of the last of my worries in this situation, in this matter, and I am feeling less stressed and less anxious, a little less frustrated, and moving forward, I'm going to feel better about moving forward with this thing here. When I got the news here, and one of the things that sneaks up on you, one of the things that I learned about myself, is that I didn't realize how frustrated and anxious and really stressed out I was about a certain situation until it finally got resolved. It really felt like this, this elation, this real big lift came off of my shoulders when this issue got resolved with the Department of Economic Security here, DES in Arizona, and more specifically qualifying for access insurance here. It's a bit of a pain for someone whose finances aren't straightforward. Mine are a little more complicated, so I had to jump through some extra hoops, and dealing with government people who aren't used to seeing something outside of the norm, you can be frustrating, and it really was. And I had to basically go down and in person speak to someone about my situation, which was awesome. Once I started trying to do stuff online, it wasn't coming through the way I wanted to. But again, once you speak to someone face to face, and I went down to the office there, and nothing but wonderful people helping me out. The lady that helped me out with my situation was so nice, so genteel, very nice, very soft-spoken lady, and I was able to explain to her my situation. She understood. She was a decision maker, and bam, we got the shit that needed to get done got done. And I was just so very happy about that. So now I am less stressed out, less frustrated, less anxious than I was before. Just in case for those wondering, to make a short story long here, it was a freak accident. I stepped on something, it got super infected. I went to the ER and didn't come out of the hospital till 16 days later. I did lose a toe. I almost lost two. Thank God for the surgeons out there at St. Joe, both the orthopedics and the plastic surgeons. While I was in there, I was diagnosed with high blood pressure, and which is a complication from, I was also diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, which isn't really that surprising since essentially every member of my family has diabetes on both sides of the family. So it was really just a matter of me not watching my diet as and exercising as much as I should have. The first couple of days in the hospital, it was very frustrating. You sit there, you're very anxious about surgeries. I had 4 surgeries on my foot, and then I have one more coming up I have an open wound on my foot right now, and we're going to have one more to close it all up and have the real healing process start. And so I'm a little anxious for that. That's coming up next week. I'm in the hospital first couple of days, and I'm supposed to be this creative type, and I'm sitting there, and adds on to my little anxiety while I'm in there. I'm trying to think of ways to be creative. I'm trying to think of ways to come up with projects, and it's very difficult when you're feeling sorry for yourself. You're just down, and you're not in a real good emotional state. And while a lot of people may use that sort of emotion and those sort of feelings to create, it's something that I am not used to. I'm sitting in there and I'm just, thinking, just stupid thoughts. And, but a couple of things just really, fucking just clear my shit. Come to find out that the patient right next door to me is going through chemotherapy, and he's got cancer. The patient across the hall from me also has cancer and is going through chemotherapy, and that person has lost all their hair. But everybody that comes in to visit him, and I saw him a couple of times, they're all smiles. The person next to me, the patient next to me, you can't go into his room without suiting up and having a face mask and being all covered up to speak to him. A couple of times his son, and this cat was young, he couldn't have been older than I was. If he was, it wasn't by much. His teenage son would come in and spend a couple of days with him during the week or on the weekend just to hang out. I learned what a code blue was in the hospital. There was an alarm that went off, and it was a code blue, and then I hear all this hustle and bustle coming outside my room, and I wonder what the hell's going on. So the next time the nurse came in, I asked her, what is a code blue? Turns out a code blue is an all hands on deck because someone's heart stopped. And everyone who's available needs to go and essentially help resuscitate this person. Apparently they did. I asked the nurse what happened or if that person is feeling well. She's all like, well, I can't discuss those sort of things with you, but I can tell you that the person is now in ICU, but they are still alive. This is all happening, of course, while I'm in the hospital. Then you watch the news. Later on, of course, there's the hurricane that's coming out, and then there's those people on the boat that basically drowned or burned alive out there in Catalina somewhere. The super tragic part here too is that a friend of a friend, and I tell you this story not to belittle this person's tragedy or anything, but just as a reference of from a state of mind, from the point of view that, things, and from my point of view, that things could be worse. This cat caught some freak virus and it went untreated for a little bit. He was really sick and it was misdiagnosed at first. So he got this fucking terrible sickness. And I don't want to go into too many details about it. His wife was pregnant. And through the stress, she lost a child. This dude didn't make it. So there was a double funeral for the lost child, 8 months, by the way. And this guy and this lady was a widow instantly and lost a child all in this basically the same time frame. And it's just, I don't want to be a downer or anything, but again, it's just shit that really starts to affect you, and you start to appreciate your situation a little more. And at the risk of sounding really callous, you look at yourself and go, man, things could be a lot worse. I could just, things could be a lot worse. So from that point on, it's just very hard to sit there and look at these people's situation around you and then start to feel really sorry about yourself. It doesn't clear you completely emotional because, everything's relative. Everyone has their own problems. Everyone has their own shit that they're going through, but you start to more or less on a global scale try to emotionally digest what you're going through compared to what other people are going through. And yes, I'm still frustrated. I'm not mobile. I have an open wound. I'm restless. I can't really go out and do anything. I'm on this little knee scooter and I won't be walking for a while, and that's just something that I have to go through. But you can try to learn from people who go through their own bullshit and their own experiences and their own, and see how they deal with them, So I'm going from these aimless thoughts in the hospital. I'm still not in a good place, and I want to create and I want to do something. And I was going to ask my brother to bring in my little podcasting equipment or a little recorder so that I can record some things. I was thinking about doing some photography in there, but it wouldn't have done anyone any good. It wasn't from a good place, and I just didn't feel that I was going to create anything positive or anything useful to anyone. I'm still thinking in the hospital, aimless thoughts. I get out, and it goes from getting out of the hospital to still being at home, being anxious, being frustrated, and having a situation that was still not resolved until this week. It finally got resolved this week, and now I'm in a better state of mind so that I can podcast and not try to sound like a complete downer. And still try to add some value to, the overall theme of what's going on here. And what I'm trying to learn and how I'm trying to be creative and, as cliche-ish as it might sound, how to, make something out of this situation. My current obstacle right now as I get out is, aside from not being able to walk, is I have, again, this open wound on my foot, and it needs to heal up. And of course, while having a high blood sugar, it doesn't help. So I need to control that. I'm on all kinds of medication right now and some insulin they got me on. But what's most important is my diet. I need to control the amount of carbs that I take in. So I'm on this, controlling my blood sugar. I'm on this low carb keto diet. That's my current obstacle at the moment. I can't eat things like tortillas and beans, things that are basically a staple and have been a staple of my diet, have to either be cut out or be very watched closely. I can't have as many beans and tortillas in a single sitting as I had before. Depending on the size of the tortillas, tacos are going to be a struggle. Things like rice and, of course, candy and certain fruits are they're going to have to be super controlled in my diet. I love eating fruit, and bananas and apples and stuff. So I really have to watch those sort of things right now. I've taken that as an opportunity now. There's a new creativity to bring all these Mexican dishes to life. And, of course, you've heard me talking about my Instapot before, where I am trying to convert all these Mexican recipes to be easier to cook in the Instapot. Now the challenge is using my Instapot to really start creating more keto type and low carb type diets. So that's another great opportunity to learn. I'm watching all these videos on the YouTube, checking out what works, what doesn't work, trying to really keep my sugar levels under control with carbs. Now, the interesting thing about this is that this shit is just the same as anything else. Everyone's got different ways of doing things. Some recipes work, some recipes don't. And I find it very funny about how learning about keto diets through YouTube, which is, the most readily available source of information, good and bad, you start learning. And because of my experiences with learning from the Instapot recipes and basically learning from certain photography stuff as well and certain other artwork as well, is that you start to understand which is the good information and which is the bad information. So I am diving into that, trying to, again, process what I have and create my own things coming for it. So that's a good thing. I'm trying to come up with a diet that's going to be sustainable for me to help my health. But man, I tell you what, man, this fucking diet here, another thing I appreciate here, living in America, man, this shit is expensive. It's actually downright ridiculous. And it's another thing where I feel sorry and I feel very lucky that I'm not in some country where, let's just say that they have very limited alternatives to almond flour, xanthan gum, coconut flour, and they have to adhere to the diets that they've always had. I keep thinking about, people in Mexico. Like, again, most of my relatives are diabetic or have high blood pressure, and they have issues, and they all have a history of it. But the things that are readily available to them, where that's within their finances, are things that we're not supposed to be eating as diabetics, and that our blood sugar should be controlled. And on top of that, is that even if I think that the attitude anyway is that even if they could, most of the relatives probably don't even care, and their health goes by the wayside. A couple uncles there that are not, their health is terrible, probably are going to, one uncle in particular is probably not going to make it through the year. I don't, hopefully he does, but my grandmother died from complications of diabetes. Granted, she wasn't exactly a spring chicken, but she could have had a longer life had she taken care of herself. After she lost the foot, then lost part of her leg. The alternative is that, all right, well, we start this keto diet. If you can't have corn or flour tortillas, the staple is corn. What kind of tortillas can you have? And that's going to be the hardest part for me, is having to change and being able to embrace this change and essentially having myself make my own tortillas. Another thing I learned is I look through the grocery list and I see how much shit is just full of sugar and full of carbs, and how our diets are just so fucked that it's really is a struggle to try to have a low carb diet, but it's possible unless we have a specific approach to controlling what we eat. If we just go to the store and buy whatever, that is not paying attention to our health. The important thing here is, again, as throw another cliche, is that you need, in order to be creative here, in order to be able to make things, whatever it is that you want to make creatively or just in pragmatic sense, you have to have a good state of mind, a clear state of mind. And to make it sound obvious, you have to watch your health, man. And that's one thing that I've learned as I'm getting older, is that ignoring your health isn't doing anyone any favors, man. Some of us have families, and we have to be responsible and be in a healthy state of mind and body in order to take care of your responsibilities. While I was in the hospital, without a clear mind, with, having these dark thoughts, I didn't come up with any real projects. I mean, maybe an idea or two, but nothing that I would riff on coming out. It's just, I'm in this preoccupied by these dark thoughts, and I'm not even listening to anybody else's podcast. All I'm doing is watching a bunch of fucking Dwayne Johnson movies on their circuit TV to pass the time and to try to entertain myself and not think. I mean, reading was even a chore because my attention span isn't about processing anything complicated. It's not about processing thought, and it's not about being creative. It's just a terrible way to go through your day, in and out. Sitting in a hospital bed for fucking 16 days is just, oh man, it's just draining creatively. It really is, We got to stay healthy. We've got to watch our health. Go around the block, start walking, start eating better. I can't have as much. See, that was the other thing. Not only is, tortillas a thing, but I drink a lot of soda. And I haven't had a Coke now for about a month, or any type of sugary soft drink for about a month or so, and it's making a big difference in the blood sugar. But that is my crack, man. I just drank soda. I love soda. I love the Mexican Cokes in a bottle, and I had to cut that out and live with diet soda or, iced tea, water, milk, things like that. All that stuff is starting to matter now as I approach my mid-40s. Yes, mid-40s. And while I look good on the outside, my vitals weren't up to par. So got to start exercising, got to start eating better, because that's how we're going to stay creative, is by staying healthy. Hopefully here, I'll be on 2 feet by Thanksgiving, if not sooner, and I'll get to restart all my projects that I need 2 feet to accomplish. Until then, it's all about getting my little idea book out and start jotting down my ideas for projects and be ready to go by the time I'm ready to shoot. Well, I think I bored you guys enough about it. I'm sorry if it was a downer. I did want to add some value to this as far as creative, what I've learned as far as staying creative through, personal hardship. Hopefully we got something out of it. What's funny is I did need to do a podcast more for myself, I guess, and more to kind of let it out sort of thing. So in a sense, this is a little bit selfish. I definitely dig that. But hopefully I was able to add enough value to help someone out there who might be needing some sort of options as far as going through some tough times and doing what you need to do. But at the very least, I hope to bring home the point that we need to be healthy. We need to watch our health. And I know it sounds like some sort of, a born again sort of whatever, but I can't stress enough how, all right. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. I will talk to you next time, and enjoy your youth.